The cockpit of the Spitfire was a cramped, vibrating cage of glass and steel. For Jack Thorne, a 20-year-old pilot with barely 50 hours of combat time, it was the only home he had left. High above the English Channel, the sky was a hauntingly beautiful shade of sapphire, but Jack couldn't afford to admire the view. He was squinting into the glare of the morning sun, his eyes burning from the salt of his own sweat. "Blue section, brake left." The voice crackled in his headphones, distorted by static and the roar of the Merlin engine. Jack kicked the rudder and pulled the stick hard to the side. The G-force slammed him into his seat, draining the blood from his head until his vision began to gray at the edges. He gritted his teeth, tensing his stomach muscles to stay conscious. As the plane rolled, he saw them a swarm of Messerschmitts diving out of the clouds like dark hawks. The air, which had been silent moments ago, was suddenly filled with the chaotic geometry of war. Tracers bright, glowing streaks of light zipped past his canopy. He could smell the sharp scent of high-octane fuel and the hot oil of his engine. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat matching the rhythm of the machine guns. "I've got one on my tail," someone screamed over the radio. Jack didn't think, he reacted. He flipped his Spitfire into a sharp barrel roll, watching the silver glint of an enemy fighter flash past him. He pulled the nose up, climbing into the thin, freezing air until his engine gasped for breath. He leveled out, and there, framed perfectly in his reflector sight, was the cross-marked tail of a German bomber. His thumb hovered over the firing button on the spade grip. His father's voice echoed in his mind. "Don't fire until you can see the rivets on the wings, Jack." He waited. 500 yards, 400. The bomber grew larger, its rear gunner spraying a desperate line of bullets that stitched holes through Jack's left wing. He felt the plane shudder, but he held his course. At 200 yards, he squeezed the trigger. The 8 Browning machine guns in his wings roared to life. The vibration shook the entire airframe, a violent, mechanical shudder that lasted only seconds. Smoke poured from the bomber's engine, followed by a bright orange bloom of fire. The big plane tilted, sliding down toward the glittering sea below. Jack didn't watch it fall. In the air, looking back was a death sentence. He banked hard to the right, scanning the horizon for his squadron, but the sky was suddenly empty. The dogfight had drifted miles away in a matter of seconds. He was alone, thousands of feet above the earth, with nothing but the hum of his engine and the whistling wind coming through the bullet holes in his wing. He looked at his fuel gauge. The needle was hovering near empty. His hands, clad in leather gloves, were shaking uncontrollably. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion. As he crossed the white cliffs of Dover, the green fields of England spread out beneath him like a patchwork quilt. He saw a farmer in a field, stopping his tractor to wave a hat at the lone plane passing overhead. Jack didn't wave back. He didn't have the strength. He just lowered his landing gear and eased the battered Spitfire onto the grass strip of his airfield. He climbed out of the cockpit, his legs feeling like lead. He stood on the grass, breathing in the scent of crushed clover and cooling metal. A mechanic ran up to him, pointing at the shredded fabric of his wing. "Close one today, sir," the man said, eyes wide. Jack looked up at the sun, still bright and indifferent in the sky. "Every day is a close one," he whispered. He took off his flight goggles, leaving white circles around his soot-stained eyes, and began the long walk toward the debriefing hut. He would have a cup of tea, a few hours of sleep, and then he knew he would have to go back up and do it all again.